there's a certain expectation in certain communities that we can't be expected to be that all the time. And just because we don't meet that particular expectation of the time or of the year doesn't make us a failure, and it doesn't make us less than. And it's taken me years to come to grips with the fact that I am not stupid, that I am not a waste of life, that my quirkiness and funness and kind of inappropriateness is like totally okay. And through the ADHD community and finding a partner who is absolutely supportive of the person that I am, we don't have to be alone, and we can choose to not be alone. It takes a lot of work, and it's still taking a lot of work. But when we finally choose to put that work in, as tough as it is, it's only until we find the community that allows us to put in that work, that gives us permission to do that work, and in turn gives us permission for ourselves to do that work, that we can say, hey, this is 100% okay.
ADHD Rewired, episode 363. This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups, and you can learn all about our intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. You can do all of this at our website, ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started.
Welcome back to another... Wait, what's the beginning? I just lost it.
Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. Today, we have a very special cast for you today. We got MJ in the house. What's going on, MJ?
Whoop, whoop. Hi, everybody.
All right. So full disclosure right off the bat. We are both unmedicated. Also, we are at least one scotch in.
Accurate.
All right. So, we debated, is that on brand to have a scotch, unmedicated? And so here's kind of what we were thinking. So MJ is, if you've been listening to the podcast for a little while, and at least recently, you know that she's coming out with ADHD Diversified.
Whoop, whoop.
And MJ is one of the most funnest people.
Is funnest a word?
No, that I know. And so
thanks, Eric.
So last week we sat down to record an episode, and I don't know if I've ever actually have done this before, MJ, but you were there, so you know what happened. I stopped the recording about 20 minutes in, and I'm just like, I'm so bored right now. Like, this isn't working. So I was like, all right, we got to rethink how we present you to ADHD Rewired. I mean, people know you a little bit from the Q&As, but I want to really have more of a fun episode where we share a bit of your story, but I want people to get to know who you are, because you're coming out with a new podcast on the network, and it's gonna be what's the word?
Nope. I don't know. It's freaking me out a little bit. No, it's gonna be dope.
It's gonna be dope.
Usually I say nope, but I think it's gonna be. I'm gonna try to make it fun while taking on some kind of more serious topics that have kind of gone untold. And I think without humor, it's just gonna be dry and to be honest, kind of boring. And I'm just not about that at all. And especially in our ARC and alumni community, I'm kind of a bit of an odd duck. Like, I'm a self-proclaimed odd duck for sure. And I want to stay true to that. So the other reasoning behind, I guess, sort of recording it this way is during the daytime, I have an office job and I'm medicated during the day. And I get into super, super office mode and I'm boring as hell. Like I'm just, I get pretty stiff and I don't say what's on my mind or say it in a way like I don't speak.
That's got to be a talent in some areas, right?
Well, before I had my office job, I worked in retail for many years, since I was 17 up until about, 25, 26, I want to say. And then I got into car sales and I was horrible at it. Unfortunately.
What happened?
So people who are listening to this right now, they can't see, but if they have seen the Q&As, that I am of Asian descent. And I'm also very short. I'm only about 4'11" and 3/4, and I'm emphasizing the 3/4 part because I am, at least with shoes on, like I'm 5 feet tall. And people who are, and not the majority, it's only one or two, but it does have an impact. If they're coming in, they're buying a truck, and at the time I knew I had a pretty good knowledge of towing capacity, all the features, and all that kind of stuff. And there were some people that didn't like that. So I think the best and worst comment.
They didn't like that you knew the things?
Well, so I guess the best way to sum it up would be the best and worst comment that I've ever gotten is, I ain't buying no truck from some foreigner.
Oh my God. Wow. How often do you get stuff like that? I remember you shared something with me at I think it was your current place of employment, someone who was not the kindest to you.
And then there's been a couple. And, typically with, the Asian community, we have a lot of positive stereotypes, but there's still a component of you people that seems to come up. When I worked in retail, and I managed a pretty good outdoor based clothing store. And one of the comments that I had there was, well, why don't you get your cousin to make me a better jacket?
Oh my God. So what do you say to people that say stuff like that?
As much as I would just love and have loved to rage out, to stay professional, and this will circle back to what we were talking about earlier, being, doing this as an unmedicated podcast is, just being very tactful in the way that I respond is, I'm sorry, ma'am or sir, that you feel that way. If this is an issue for you, or if that's how you choose to behave, either I'm going to have to ask you to leave, or if this escalates, I will have to call security. And most of the time it was, they storm out upset because otherwise it would turn into basically assault. But just seeing how far people can push the bar. And it's not ever really something that I had thought about at the time, because, when you're young and sort of, I had a certain ego about me that was like, nah, whatever, like, it's fine. Like, don't even worry about it. At the end of the day, it still had an impact on me, but I would bury myself so much in my work that if I didn't have time to sit and think about it and like be alone with my own thoughts, that it never took hold of what, kind of those comments actually meant. And most of the time, my assumption was, if they escalate high enough, then they'll get what they want. But I didn't really. I chose not to handle it. I chose not to deal with it. It was just, sorry, no. You can either walk away or you can be reasonable.
So I think part of what we're doing here too is trying to give the a large, I think, underrepresented part of the ADHD community a voice. What I want to do is, can I share here the your trailer that you shared with me, even if it's the not final version of it?
Okay, I guess.
All right, here we go.
ADHD Diversified, take 1. Welcome to that. Coming soon to and take 2. Hey, get this dog out of here! Okay, I think I've got it this time. Are you ready? Coming soon to the ADHD reWired podcast network, ADHD Diversified. Hosted by a Canadian-born Asian with ADHD. But if we're getting really specific, a Filipino-Canadian. Oh wait, that's me. Hey everyone, I'm your host, MJ, and I'm so excited to be launching this podcast. Or rather, I'm very excited. Anyway, here's what to expect. We'll talk about the relatable quirks and hilarities that can come with having ADHD, and even dive into some challenging subject matter, like the unique experiences that come with being a visible minority with ADHD, different perceptions of ADHD and mental health in different communities, and how different coping mechanisms have been developed for every individual ADHDer and their similar yet such unique experiences. From short stories and skits with a bit of humor to in-depth conversations with other like-wired brains, this will be the podcast that opens up fun and exciting exchanges while bringing some of those tougher discussions to light. If you want to know more about us, have a topic idea, or want to share your unique ADHD story, visit us at adhddiversified.ca. There, you can also find the other podcasts on the ADHD reWired podcast network, ADHD reWired with Eric Tivers, ADHD Essentials with Brendan Mahan, and Hacking Your ADHD with Will Kerb. Oh, and I'm not the only one to be launching a new podcast. Keep your eyes open and your ears ready for the ADHD-friendly lifestyle with Moira Maben. You can find them linked on the ADHD Diversified website. Go to adhddiversified.ca to find out more. You can join all of us for a monthly live Q&A every second Tuesday of the month. Go to adhdrewired.com/events to register. All that being said, I'm so glad you're here, and thanks for listening. With some seriousness, mixed in with a bit of playfulness, we hope you'll tune in to ADHD Diversified as we diversify the voices and experiences of ADHD.
You know, you had mentioned that you thought this should be a good video cast, and I think that this totally would have been, because that was a 3-minute intro, and in that teaser that we just listened to, we had a dance party. We were miming. You put a spoon on your nose, and I put a bottle cap. I pushed it onto my forehead where it's stuck there.
I was hoping there'd be a mark left there because it'd be hilarious, but there's not. I was looking. Oh, man.
It's so good. It's so good. Okay, so
thank you.
Yeah, it's when you sent this to me last week, I was like, holy shit, you nailed it. Like it was, yes. It's that combination of dealing with serious topics without taking ourselves so seriously, which I think is such an important kind of balanced approach to dealing with difficult topics.
I totally agree. And that this finally circles back to our original point of why we decided to re-record this is, you know, during the daytime, I'm very officey and professional. And right now I'm in pajamas with a blanket that I crocheted. But in the daytime, I've got, you know, kind of a nicer shirt on, usually still wearing a hat. I'm not wearing a hat right now. What am I doing? And
you were like showing the listeners that you're not wearing a hat right now.
What am I doing? I was pointing to my head. I usually wear a toque because I'm Canadian-y. I like to wear hats.
Wait, so this is a new piece of cultural information for me. Is a toque a synonym for a hat, or what Canadians call a hat?
I'm going to be a really bad Canadian and say I don't know, but we call them, up here we know them as toques.
Are all hats toques, or only certain hats kind of hats toques?
Only, I don't know. If you're a Canadian and you're listening to this, you'll know what a toque is.
Okay, hold on. What's a toque?
The definition of the word kook is someone regarded as eccentric or crazy and standing out from the group.
I thought I said kook, and I'm like, wait,
no!
it says someone regarded as an eccentric or crazy and standing out from the group. That's not what I said.
Stop talking about me.
A toque. Wait, like T-O-O-K?
T-O-Q-U-E.
Oh, God. Okay, wait, say it again.
T-O-Q-U-E.
T-O-Q-U-E.
Taqua. I'm sorry if that's a swear in another language.
A woman's small hat, typically having a narrow, closely turned up brim. Historical, a small cap or bonnet having a narrow brim or no brim. Canadian, a close-fitting knitted hat, often with a tassel or pom-pom on the crown. So all of you Scrabble players out there, you now have another Q word.
That's going to get you a lot of points.
Mm-hmm.
None of my toques have pom-poms on them yet, but I've crocheted, I think. Let's just say I'm never going to have to buy another hat again.
Oh, it's like a winter hat with a pom-pom.
Yeah. And they're dope.
Yeah, I love pom-poms. They're so fun. I just want to jiggle my head around.
And in addition to having ADHD, I also have a hair pulling condition called Trichotillomania. So when I wear a hat, they're comfortable, and it's winter here right now, if you're listening to this in January of 2021. And it keeps me from pulling my hair. I
don't think I knew that you had trichotillomania.
I have some serious trichotillomania. I think I ended up pulling out a pretty good chunk of hair that was, I don't know, at least a space of 2 by 2 square inches.
Wow.
Like it was
a lot. Do you ever find that you actually don't realize you're doing it? Or is it always
I've had people in, so when you go through the coaching groups, you get access to adult study hall. And sometimes people will call me out and be like, hey, stop pulling your hair. Stop playing with your hair. Because it's not really a secret, but if I haven't brought it up, oops.
No, it's so interesting because there are certainly people that I notice, and I've had conversations where I'm like, hey, if I notice that you're doing, X, Y, or Z, or sorry, let me adapt for you, X, Y, or Z.
Wow.
It's so fun. Was it you or was it Moira it
was me.
Where I actually said it as a joke because it felt funny for me to say it, and he didn't even it just felt very normal to you.
Oh no, that may not have been me, but when I said XYZ, then you're like, what? And I was like, Zed? Canadian?
Well, I think I did not know that was a thing until my son was very little, and we started listening to this musician that we liked, and his alphabet songs all had his ABCs went up to Z, and I was like, Zed? What is that? And then I was listening to the Bare Naked Ladies, and they're talking about ZZ Top.
Okay, from my perspective, it's ZZ Top because ZZ nobody says we're catching a bunch of Zs tonight. Nobody says that. Even correct me, Canadian friends, if we do, but I've always known it as we're catching some Zs. I've ever heard say we're catching some Zs.
So, I was just sort of thinking of this whole idea of monoliths that in no matter what sort of cross-functionality of a culture we are from, nobody is from whatever culture you're from or religion you're from or race, no one's a monolith. Right. We all have these unique experiences, which is, I think just makes the conversation around diversity so much more nuanced and interesting. And I think it's just so important to be so curious around discussions around diversity.
And I still want it to be fun. I don't want it to be this serious, like we have to, talk about it in a particular way because, you look at comedy shows and, Netflix specials of other people, and it's a way for either a certain group to relate that makes it funny and be like, oh yeah, that's kind of true. Or like, oh yeah, that's, it's a different way of approaching it that isn't so thorny and icky,
right? I mean,
and unapproachable.
When I did my interview with, I am so not going to remember her name.
Ramonza McAllister.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
You're welcome.
Wow. I just want to take a moment and just sit in that amazingness of like, I just felt like you were in my brain, and like that thing that I've always wanted, to have a computer chip that can just verbalize the thoughts that are stuck in my brain. Like it just happened in real time.
And this is kind of a weird thing too with different presentations of ADHD, which also adds to the diversity, is that neurodiversity is exactly what it is. It's different traits and different quirks and different things that come up that, okay, there's certain stereotypes of ADHD that exist, but that just because it's a stereotype doesn't mean that that's the end all, know all, be all of a certain thing. There's different gifts and talents and strengths that can come from having ADHD or any other mental health issue. And I think those things shouldn't discount the struggles that we do go through as ADHDers. I look at myself as an office administrator. I am that weirdo who likes doing paperwork. Don't touch my paperwork.
A unicorn.
Like my inbox is at least once a week at inbox 0.
Is it really?
Yes. I have 6 or 7 emails that I have to keep up with.
Wow.
So I have 2 main work emails that I have to keep up with. One of them, it's never going to get to inbox 0 because it's not mine and I don't want to mess around with it. So I just declutter it as much as I can.
So can I give you access to my email and can you get it?
Am I going to throw up when I look at it?
I only have like 19,000 emails.
Yeah, I'm going to puke. I'm going to throw up.
Oh my God. So wait, going back to what I was saying about, I already forgot her name again. Oh my God.
Ramonza McAllister.
Ramonza, yes, thank you. Ramonza, if you're listening, it's just the ADHD. And now I'm like, what was the point that I was trying to make with it? Oh, we were talking about sort of like these thorny conversations around race. And I think it's so important that it's, for someone like me, white guy talking about race, who's wanting to be is culturally sort of open and sensitive, and like it just, to me, it's about being curious. And I am sure in that conversation and in this conversation, I'm probably going to say something that offends somebody. Like that's not my intention, right? And so I think just having an open dialogue, it's really interesting. I have very mixed kind of views on kind of the language police. I don't know what your thoughts about that are. Because I always try to do right. And I always try to like refer to people as the way they want to be referred to. Right. But there's this like, I feel like sometimes like bulldog attack mentality that comes, that can happen when you say it wrong. And I don't know, like how do you think we get into a space where we can be more comfortable talking about race and issues of diversity without being so fearful of saying the wrong thing?
So I guess my perception would be is, yes, there's, certain groups within certain cultures and underrepresented communities that identify as, maybe certain names or certain ethnic backgrounds, whatever it may be. But, at the end of the day, I personally believe that it's kind of individual, right? So for me, I am a Canadian-born Filipino. and my dad is Caucasian. And I kind of grew up in both communities. So there's kind of a thing with people who are kind of, I guess, in my experience and what I will say for myself is born into two very unique worlds, is I'm not Asian enough and I'm also not Western enough. So I don't really fit anywhere. Like I'm almost in some kind of limbo. And, you know, I've had this discussion with a number of people over the last couple of months as I'm trying to do some research and really open up the conversation about ADHD and mental health with the Asian community specifically. And it's sort of this, you know, when we're born here in North America somewhere, we tend to grow up with different values and beliefs, and we are typically, well, okay, at least in my experience, I've been seen as going really against the grain of what's expected of me.
Within the Asian community, you're saying?
Yeah, well, within my immediate Asian community anyway, is I'm supposed to, at least my expectation and what I'm perceiving to be my expectation of me anyway, is to sit down, shut up, don't stand up for yourself, do as you're told. And God forbid you're struggling.
I'm just imagining how many people just just coiled here because we've heard that in so many different capacities throughout our life.
Yeah, and that's you know, that's kind of everywhere, but at least, you know, for me and my experience, it's been a lot of, well, just because you can say it doesn't mean you have to say it. And that's been so deeply ingrained with, you know, just my brain that I've learned, to my detriment, I guess, over time to don't speak up about how you're feeling, about how you're struggling, because if you're not struggling the way, you know, somebody else's son or somebody else's daughter is, they're doing just fine. So why can't you? And that, you know, that it makes you, at least it's made me live a very, it's not that I was sheltered. I was very much left to my own devices growing up, but with that expectation in the back of my mind, feeling different was, well, I can't be different because that's bad. And if I am different, then I'm a failure. And I went undiagnosed for 30 years. And I hadn't brought this up. And I didn't know that, you know, when I was in preschool and elementary, and my teachers had coined me as twice gifted, and
twice exceptional.
Twice exceptional, yeah. And I didn't know until very, you know, recently. You know, a close friend of mine had
not tell you.
They kind of did, but at the same time, I don't know that they also knew what twice exceptional meant. And you know, somebody who's very close to me also said, you know, that they had mentioned they didn't know what that meant either, and sent me, you know, some research about it. And I was like, twice exceptional means gifted with a disability.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how my teachers had perceived me. And so I was diagnosed mid-30s, or sorry, halfway through my year of 30 with ADHD 3 times. Okay.
Wait, you mentioned this today in group where you're like, so I was diagnosed 3, and I've heard this before, people getting diagnosed multiple times. Maybe they forgot they got diagnosed or whatever it is. But I never heard someone say they got diagnosed 3 times in 1 year. So I want to take a quick break, and then I want you to tell me more about that. So we will be right back. Want to beatbox us out of here?
We'll be right back.
Support for this podcast comes from the ADHD reWired coaching community. which includes our intensive coaching and accountability groups and our alumni membership community.
My family and friends have already noticed a huge difference in me. I'm not late for everything anymore. I don't forget everything all the time. And more than anything, I'm just not stressed all the time.
Putting the skills and strategies that we have been learning about throughout ARC into action feels like opening your eyes for the first time without ever realizing they had been shut in the first place. You just an entire new world of like, I can do this, like I can do these things. Like it solidifies what you see as possible for yourself.
Our registration kickoff event for our 24th season of coaching and accountability groups is on Thursday, February 25th, which is only 2 weeks away. But before you tell yourself, I have a whole nother week to worry about that, you also have to watch a 30-minute pre-recorded registration video, complete the accompanying quiz, and submit your 45-second video by this Friday, February 19th. For the 200 of you who have already signed up to be on our spring coaching group interest list, the email with a link to the video and the instructions for your next steps have already been sent out. If you are not on our spring coaching group interest list, then go to coachingrewired.com and click on the green button to get your name added to the list. And you'll get your how to register email right away. Our registration kickoff event is on Thursday, February 25th at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. You still have time to register for our kickoff event, but not much. Check your email if you are on the spring interest list and follow the directions. So if you are listening to this right now and it's before February 19th and you're ready to join our intensive coaching and accountability community, what do you need to do right now so you remember to do the stuff that you need to do so you could be at our registration kickoff event? And if you believe you'll just remember, okay, great. And what else can you do? Just in case you don't remember. Will you create an event in your calendar for the deadline of Friday, February 19th with a notification a few days before? Or will you really show off and put it on your calendar for today? Our next season of intensive coaching and accountability groups starts April 7th.
Doing things in a community helps. It takes pressure off the individual, but raises the bar for the group. ARC has been different because by spending 4 hours a week, at least for 10 weeks with the same people, you learn that they get it, they care, they worry if you're not there. And I've been able to let my guard down enough to hear that at ARC, the sentence, we can do hard things, and we is everyone, but that everyone includes you. You belong here with us.
You can do hard things. Go to coachingrewired.com and click on the green button. We will send you the email with all the information. This is your chance to attend our invitation-only registration event on February 25th. Follow the steps in the email. The deadline for the submissions for registration kickoff event is Friday, February 19th. And if it's after the 19th, check the website or your email for our final registration event. But if you really want a spot and you don't want to risk getting stuck on the wait list, then attend our kickoff event. We do fill up every season. Your ADHD rewired coaching group journey begins at coachingrewired.com. That's coachingrewired.com. Have you been to adultstudyhall.com? In the next few weeks, we will be opening the doors to a brand new membership program for the ADHD community. Our Adult Study Hall membership community will help boost your productivity with real-time accountability over Zoom. We'll be offering a variety of different Adult Study Hall or ASH sessions, from Adult Study Hall on demand, where you can just join a Zoom room at any time of day, to our member-hosted sessions, where you can post what time you are going to be in Adult Study Hall and anyone can join you. We already have 5 ongoing member-hosted study halls scheduled Monday through Friday. Plus, we will have a number of ASH Plus sessions. The ASH Plus sessions will be facilitated work sessions, helping you get stuff done through real-time questions, check-ins, and different themes to really help you be as productive as you hope you can be. Are you on our founders list, we are offering our founders, the first 100 members who join our Adult Study Hall membership, the chance to lock in 50% off their membership. Our Adult Study Hall membership will give you virtually round-the-clock accountability for only $19.99 a month. But if you are one of our first 100 founding members, you'll be able to join for only $9.99 a month. And as long as your membership stays active, your rate will never increase. We sent out an email to everyone on the list and asked you to tell us when you would like us to schedule those first ASH Plus sessions. We want to hear from you. Check your email and click on that blue button to respond to the doodle poll in the email. We will be collecting the information you tell us on when you're available to schedule those first few ASH Plus sessions. We will have more information in the weeks ahead. Go to adultstudyhall.com to add your name to the list so you can have your chance at locking in our founders rate of only $9.99 a month. I've been making a lot of progress on building this over the last few weeks, and I'm really excited for you to see it. It's really exciting to see this idea actually coming together. Become an ADHD rewired Adult Study Hall founder. Only 100 founding memberships will be given. To get your name on the list, go to adultstudyhall.com. That's one word, adultstudyhall.com.
And we're back. What am I... Oh my God. What are we doing?
So one of MJ's and my favorite thing is to say hello to each other like our dear friend Brendan says hello on the intro to his podcast. And
Brendan, we love you.
We love Brendan Mahan of ADHD Essentials. I got him to, when he interviewed me last week, I got him to just give me a couple hellos so I can sample it on my mixer here. So we got the, and it's just one button and we get it. And it's fantastic.
I can't believe you did that. Brendan, we love you.
Oh man. We are just
also,
we put the fun in one big dysfunctional family, this ADHD rewired podcast network.
Welcome to the family of ADHD rewired. But
all right. So right before the break, we were talking about how you were diagnosed 3 times in 1 year. How do you do that?
So my partner, who is also ADHD, had seen a lot of things in me that were like, that's very ADHD. And it's been kind of a running joke with me kind of growing up, like, oh, you're so ADD. Oh, you're so ADHD. And I'm like, yeah, probably, but I don't care. And then finally, my partner, who really saw me for me, like, he really pushed me to, consider like seeking some kind of help, and not in a thorny way, because there's a certain way that people get told to ask for help.
You need to get some help.
Oh, wow. You're really overreacting. You need to seek some therapy. Like that's probably the worst way to get somebody to.
How not to encourage people to get help.
Well, it's not encouraging. It's
right,
very gaslighty, I think. Right. And so it was just kind of this subtle, like, and because we knew that he had ADHD. I knew anyway. That was disclosed to me. That it didn't feel like
the way you said that. I was like, did somebody else tell you that he had ADHD, or did he actually tell you he had ADHD?
No, he definitely told me. It was like, like I'm ADHD. It was disclosed
to me, like by his mother. No.
Yeah, no. But even the in-laws would say, yeah, we're both kind of odd ducks. But anyway, I digress. Just little subtle things like I kept the cupboard doors open all the damn time. I did the same thing, MJ. Bottle caps.
I thought my mom used to say to me, like, is it that hard to close the kitchen cabinets? And my answer was always,
it is, okay?
It is actually, because if
I come back and I need another cup or a plate, right, it's already open.
My intention is always to come back and close it. I'm just going to put something down, but then I don't come back because
Right. And so that was kind of like oh, haha, like it's kind of funny. I'll remember to close the doors. Not going to happen.
They make auto closing cabinets.
that would drive me insane. Because there's actually a certain satisfaction that comes with closing a door or something. Don't ask me. We'll talk about that later.
Wait. No. You just opened up this door. There's a certain satisfaction. Please.
Well, if I get to close the door, then I'm happy about it. If somebody else closes the door, then I'm like, well, I didn't do it.
And this is satisfying to you. Is there a certain like a sound or like tactile feedback that you get satisfaction from?
I think it's just the fact that after it was pointed out to me that I remembered to do it, that I'm like, yeah, I did that. And it's such a small victory that makes me feel so much better about myself that I'm like, I'm ADHD and I remember to close the cupboard door. Perfect. I can add that to my victory list.
That is amazing. Close the kitchen cabinet and there it is. That's what should happen every time.
It's part of my, it's a very small victory on a bad day, right? Where were we getting at?
I was actually just wondering the same thing.
Oh, right. So my partner was, had hinted like, oh, you might have ADHD. And so I the summertime of 2019, I decided, okay. I did some research on local ADHD specialists because my partner had a bad experience with, they had been diagnosed, went to see a psychologist who had also said, later on was like, well, you don't have ADHD and couldn't get treatment. We're going to cut this out, but are you seriously fucking putting raspberries on your goddamn fingers right now?
I didn't think you were going to notice.
Dude, I noticed everything.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
They look really red on the screen. I mean, it's like, it's very pretty.
They look like little mushrooms. You got skinny fingers.
They're so pretty.
Oh my God. Okay. Whenever we ever actually get a chance to meet, you're going to have to bend down to like give me a hug, or I'm going to have to stand up on like the second step of something for you to be like, oh, I can give you like a normal fucking person hug.
This is all fucking staying in.
Okay. For people who can't see, I almost called you Brendan. Eric is eating raspberries off of his fingers because he's been putting raspberries on his fingertips while I'm trying to explain my story about how I got diagnosed. Oh my God, I started. Can you please cut that out?
Not a chance.
Anyway, okay. So I finally did some research on local ADHD specialists because I did not want the same thing happen to me, because I've heard so many horror stories of, specifically women with undiagnosed ADHD getting diagnosed with something like bipolar or a mood disorder or, okay, fine. That's a component of it. It's a component, but there are other struggles in other parts of the DSM currently, as of January 2021, that would say otherwise. So I went to go see somebody who specializes in ADHD, adult ADHD, and is a woman. Did the assessment, went back, and I walked into her office for, I had the appointment for the results. And I didn't even say hi or hello. I just said, you're just going to tell me I'm stupid.
Really?
Like I looked her in the face. I was like, you're going to tell me that I'm fucking dumb. Like, there's no way that I can have ADHD. I'm just an idiot. She sat me down gently and was like, no, you know what? Like, we've had a chance to talk, and your self-awareness is pretty good, because we obviously don't have anybody else here to speak to those other experiences that you've had. But with confidence, and for somebody who's been doing this for a long time, like, it's, I'll let you take the reins. And I was like, well, okay, so what spectrum of ADHD am I on? And the answer was just yes, which was basically short for I have severe combined type ADHD, and highly recommended to go see a psychiatrist for more longer term therapy and possibly medication. So I went to book an appointment with my...
Was this the second diagnosis?
No, that was my first one after the testing. Second one was a very long appointment with an intake nurse.
Sounds fun, huh?
I was like, I'm just repeating everything over and over. Like nothing's changed. Like it's all the same. And then the follow-up visit to that intake assessment was from a psychiatric nurse who was like, oh yeah. And then following that was an appointment with the psychiatrist who also said, kind of repeated. I'm like, seriously, man, like we've been over this. Like, can you just look at my file? Like, I'm so impatient. Like, I'm sorry. I don't know if this is an ADHD thing or if I'm just annoyed or something. And I'm confident that this person is also ADHD because he couldn't stop wiggling his leg or tapping his pen. Killed me. And, after, about an hour was like, oh yeah. And with my appointment with my psychiatrist, my partner had set in to also speak to some of the experiences that he had seen in me as, living together and stuff. And it was like,
and that is best practices to have somebody else also kind of fill out those forms and to be a part of a clinical interview.
Which I was surprised at that one that my psychiatrist had invited him in. And even, my partner was surprised. He was like, oh, okay. But it really confirmed, a lot of either the speculation and I had worked very hard to make sure that it wasn't just kind of a planted idea. And I think that's also why, 3 times in the same year within like 4 months, but, also going through a pretty rigorous process. And at least where I am in Alberta, Canada, I was kind of granted that time, as short as it was, because that's a pretty short time from what I've heard.
Yeah, I often hear that the waits are pretty long in Canada to see someone.
Yeah. And I do consider myself very lucky that I was able to just kind of go through it very quickly. And also me being impatient, again, probably another component of ADHD that I was just like, fine, I'll go to the damn appointments. And I have a certain thing about me that if I'm like, I will not be late and I will not miss it. I think I've missed one appointment in the last 8 years. And it's because it was my one appointment was actually on my birthday. And then I called 2 minutes after I had missed the appointment, and literally the office that I was going to go to is 5 minutes away. And I called and I said, I'm 2 minutes late and I'm not going to come in because I already feel bad that I'm late by 2 minutes. So can I reschedule for next week? And also today is my birthday. And that's probably a reason why I forgot. And they were like, oh yeah, it's fine. But yeah, I stuck it through. Did you have to
pay the ADHD tax for the late missed appointment?
No, because I had been going to my optometrist for so long. They were like, you haven't missed an appointment in like 3 years. So you're good. Like, you're fine.
Oh, I want to ask. So real quick. So I'm just watching the time here. I want to take one more quick break before time runs away from us too much. I'm really curious for you to maybe talk a little bit about if and how you shared this diagnosis with your family. So we will be right back. The ADHD reWired podcast network is officially growing. This week's guest, MJ Siemens, is dropping her first episode this week. It's probably already live on your podcast feed. I'm recording this on Wednesday, February 10th, and it's already on Spotify. Chances are by the time this is out, it will also be on Apple Podcasts and all the remaining podcast app. The podcast is ADHD Diversified. Episode 1 is a loquacious beginning, and you can subscribe on your favorite podcast player or at her website, ADHDdiversified.ca. I will also be dropping that episode on this podcast feed in a couple of days. So you can check it out there. And if you love it, which I think you will, you'll want to go ahead and subscribe. So in addition to our new podcast, ADHD Diversified, we also have ADHD Essentials. This is for parents and educators. This is hosted by Brendan Mahan. His latest podcast is the first time talking about the topic ADHD and pregnancy with his guest, Dusty Chipora, who we've had on the podcast before. She's an ADHD coach in Canada. She's awesome. Go to ADHDessentials.com to find out more or to subscribe on the podcast player you are listening to this on now. And if you haven't checked out Hacking Your ADHD with Will Curb, this is the month to start subscribing. Will's series on digital declutter started last week, and he continues this week with digital declutter, Too Many Tabs. If you have ever heard Will's series, because he often will do these 3, 4, 5-part series, they are absolutely worth listening to. I think that they are brilliant. Go to hackingYourADHD.com to check them out. And we still have in the works the ADHD friendly lifestyle with Moira Mabin. Date to be determined still. We are working on it. Moira right now she's taken on one of our coaching groups. She's coaching a early morning coaching group right now. And so she's kind of focusing on that while at the same time gearing up to get the ADHD friendly lifestyle out for you to listen to. You can meet all of us from the ADHD reWired podcast network, Brendan, MJ, Will, Moira, and myself every second Tuesday of the month for our live monthly Q&A. It's always on the second Tuesday of the month. The next one will be on Tuesday, March 9th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. We always do these on the same time as well. To register, go to ADHDrewired.com/events. We also air these on our Facebook page. So if you want to get notified there, just go to our Facebook page and like us and click the option that lets you get notified when we go live. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from patrons who support us over on Patreon. Patrons like Justin C. and Henry H. and Angela M. and John G. and Brenda C., who all recently became patrons. If you are new to this podcast or you're a longtime listener, welcome. One way to show your support for ADHD Rewired is to become a patron. We have 4 levels with different perks. You can support us at the $3 a month level and get an immediate dopamine hit for supporting us. The second level is at the $5 a month level, and there you can get ad-free episodes each week, as well as some other periodically posted contents. At the third level is the $10 a month level, where you can listen to the audio recordings of our patron-only monthly coaching calls, which we do for the 4th level of patrons, which is at the $25 a month level, where you can join me and other patrons once a month for this group coaching session on Zoom. Go to ADHDrewired.com/Patreon to show your support. And thank you. The ad-free episodes are a new perk at the $5 a month level. You'll get ad-free episodes on your podcast player. Once you become a patron, click on My Membership and then click on Acast. That's My Membership and then click Acast, or it might even say RSS feed. That will prompt you and ask you what podcast app you want this feed to go to. So just follow the directions there. And it's available on all podcast apps except Spotify at the time of this recording anyways. So thank you so much to all of our patrons. I really do appreciate everyone's support. And if you've been thinking about this for a while, or even thinking that you would like to get a little bit of coaching, remember that at just $25 a month, you can join me on the 4th Tuesday of every month at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern for a monthly coaching call with other patrons. And if you don't care about the perks, you can still support ADHD Rewired. Go to ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. That's ADHDrewired.com and click the Patreon tab at the top of the page. And thanks. What was it? So did you tell your family?
A little bit later.
Yeah. How was that?
So I told my mom, probably, I think maybe November or December of the year that I got diagnosed. And yeah, I got diagnosed in August/September.
And what did she say?
To my surprise, very open about it. And I've asked a lot of, other people and who are of Asian descent. Their experience isn't so merciful. And I say that very deliberately, merciful, is that my mom was very accepting of it. And I consider myself very lucky. I was very hesitant to tell her, let alone that I was on medication, for fear of, rejection or saying, oh, well, you don't really need that. Or, ADHD is not real, or mental health issues aren't real, which is a very real discussion in at least my local Asian community. I don't know anybody locally right now that's, of Asian descent and ADHD, but mental health in general, not awesome to bring up to either other friends or family or community that would be met with open arms. A strong sense of shame and rejection, that I really think I'm really, really lucky that when I did say something finally, that it was actually okay. And I was gearing up to be rejected. And
yeah, I was going to say, what was your fear to tell them?
Well, so my mom specifically, who is, the Filipino side of my family, and it's just her and I here in Alberta, was, I really thought I might lose my mom.
Really?
Because anything mental health related is not talked about. So I was actually quite worried that, oh, you're crazy. Oh, it's all in your head. I'm like, yeah, it's all in my head because the brain is an organ that's part of the damn body. Like, what do you want me to do about it? Like, we take Advil for inflammation and body pain. Why not medication for our brain, which counts as an organ to the body? Luckily, very luckily, I didn't have to endure that.
You told me that you posted something as you were kind of trying to feel out some of the receptiveness to something around ADHD in the Asian community. You're in some big Facebook groups.
So there's a Facebook group that I joined, and I just made like a small call out, and it is specific to Asian mental health. Just a small call out of like, hey, I don't really know anybody else that's Asian with ADHD. Are y'all out there? Holy, apologize ahead of time because I'm Canadian. Fuck. The response was crazy.
Yeah.
I was expecting, and this is a group that has like 50 or 60,000 members.
Okay.
I was expecting like 10 people to respond. I woke up, I sent it in the evening because I was like, I'm going to post it and ignore it. And then it has to be approved and then it'll just show up and it'll be fine. A couple days later, my phone blew up because I hadn't turned off notifications for that group. And over 300 reactions and over 300 comments later, still going throughout that week, I think I struck a nerve. It reconfirmed that I'm not alone. There were so many stories of, my family disowned me. I was told I shouldn't be on medication regardless. My struggles are fake. Because the bar that's set as someone who I look Asian, and there's a certain, whether conscious or not, an expectation that's, well, you should be good at math. You should be good at this. You should be an academic. You are quiet and will not stand up and, or, and in my experience, specifically my experience, not speaking for everybody, is, or if you're not a super educated professional, you're a trophy wife that's popped out babies while still looking like a trophy wife, and you still shut up. I don't fit either of those. Like, I like Star Trek. I read and watch The Expanse. I have Lego. I like VR.
Okay, so you and your partner have a Lego room and no children, which is just, I think, the coolest thing.
The Legos for us. Just saying.
And I totally get it, because I have on more than like many occasions, Gibson is sleeping and I'm downstairs playing with the Legos because they're just awesome.
Yeah. Like, I like Lego. I like playing Star Trek VR.
I get the same feeling building like Legos as I do from painting.
Oh, there you go. See? And I enjoy a little bit of doodling here and there. I like calligraphy because my penmanship, honestly, growing up was atrocious. Like, I got in trouble because
you're very like, I've seen some of the stuff you've created and it's like, and you call that doodling? Come on.
I wrote a letter to my 5th grade teacher because I used to write in all caps growing up, because that's how my dad used to write. I guess. I'm small. I have to be loud so people can hear me. Just kidding. And like cursive writing was just atrocious to me at the time. And I wrote a letter.
Cursive writing's the best because you can get away with not knowing how to spell words with just squiggling that part of the word you can't spell.
Because my future self doesn't thank me for that. If I can't read it later, I'm upset. My was better. Right. But yeah, like cursive writing, all that kind of stuff. No. Where were we going with this? Oh yeah. Circling back to like 2 conversations ago. Yes, both my parents were very accepting of, the ADHD part. We're both laughing because we were literally circling back to 2 conversations ago. But yeah,
probably everyone listening is totally like, why do you need to even make a comment about that? I'm following it. Fair.
I just consider myself very lucky. And after waking up to like way too many notifications about me too, I'm also ADHD, my parents don't accept me, or my parents kind of get it, or, just so many stigmas about it. It really confirmed either my experiences or how I felt about being undiagnosed to diagnosed. Because when you don't reach that bar as somebody who looks like me, there's a certain stereotype of, I should have been the person that people should have asked to help with their homework. I should have been that person that just got it. I should have been that person that should have been in honors classes or IB classes, whatever, wherever you're from, it's got a name to it. No, not me. I am a high school dropout. I am a college dropout, first time. Second time I did graduate. But I went to a community college, right? I'm not a scholar. I'm not highly educated in the eyes of, the, I guess, neurotypical world. But something that I will and have continued to repeat that, Eric, you've said to me multiple times is don't discount your experience. And as somebody with ADHD who goes from one thing to the next so damn quickly, I really think that there is a strength to that. And a piece of paper isn't going to define my brain.
It's so funny so I have a master's degree and I used to, always put my letters and everything. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And the more people I've interacted with and have worked with, I realized that education comes in so many different forms. And, MJ, from just all the work that we have done together, a common sort of trait of people with ADHD is to be able to connect like unseemingly connected things and see the big picture of something and see how they all connect. And shit, you do that so well. Like it's fun sort of watching you connect things because your brain moves super fast. And
it's almost annoying. Like I piss myself off on a daily basis. Like, why can't you just slow down? Even like when I'm medicated, I'm like, I have to write this down because I'm going to forget because it's part of the bigger picture. And then I have to put it somewhere that I can do it because, and I really think that's another advantage that I have of not being, quote unquote educated on paper, is that I can look at everything from such a beginner perspective. Because if I put something together and I give it to somebody else and they don't understand it, neurotypical or not, that means I haven't broken it down enough for them to understand.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, it's, I value so much sort of that the not traditionally educated perspective, because it's often, because sometimes we get so close to something that we like don't even think that, all right, so you have option A, B, and C. And for someone who's like maybe schooled in a certain something, it's like, those are your three options. And then, someone who hasn't had a formal education or something, like, well, what about option D or E or F? Have you thought about E? Right? Like,
have you thought about numbers? Like there's a certain, gift that I find with people with ADHD, no matter who you are or where you're from, is that we have such a unique gift of problem solving that even when we're working with other ADHDers, we can see things that, even for myself, there are some things that I have narrowed my focus because that's what I know. And I don't know until somebody steps in and says, hey, have you thought about this? And I go, oh, that makes sense. But then my brain goes bing, 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 bing. And then I see the really, really big picture. And then I just annoy the crap out of myself even more. But that's such a really good thing to have. And I think, that is one of the beauties of having an ADHD brain, is like we have such a unique way of problem solving that my neurotypical friends are like, how did you come up with that in like 4 minutes?
All right. So I got a question for you. We're going to close this out here in just a moment. So part of your podcast, you're going to be interviewing people
at some point,
because interviewing, animals just isn't as fruitful of a conversation. Like, as I was saying, I'm like, oh, that's so not funny, Eric. Like, just retreat, abort. And I couldn't. What are you hoping to learn?
Ooh.
Or what do you want to learn about? Like, what do you like? Not that you have an intended outcome of something you're wanting to learn, but like, what are you really curious that you hope to discover? I don't know if that reclarification of that question helped at all.
No, I think it did. Is, learning how any underrepresented community perceives ADHD, deals with ADHD, how upbringings, locations, culture, household has affected the way we manage our ADHD. And whether that leads to being diagnosed late, diagnosed early. There's so many different factors that I've looked at, coming to bringing up, talking about ADHD diversified, right? It could be like my main focus right now is going to be on the greater Asian community, because I only truly know my own experience. But on talking with other people who are not necessarily ADHD, but locally who have mental health issues, the way that that's perceived, and expanding out to different sub-communities, I guess, and depending on how you appear as an underrepresented person, or a person of color, right? How certain cultures or expectations or upbringings will affect the way that you will either seek a diagnosis, seek help, seek support, or even get support if it's made available or not, if it's shown that it's available or not, how that can be improved, how it can be brought to underrepresented communities, and how we can reduce the stigma in any community or any country, any geographical location, any skin color, doesn't matter. That we're not alone. No matter who we are, we're not alone. No matter if it's ADHD or something else, the help is there. It's a matter of if the resources are being made available and who is providing that resource, who represents that resource. I think that's a huge component because I have done so much research and I've met a small group of at least people who look like me that have ADHD, but look elsewhere and we can't find anything because we're not expected to be less than. We're not expected to speak up. We're expected to be a certain standard that realistically I can't meet. And just because I want to speak up in a different capacity and speak up in a different way and be a little goofy, like I'm not super serious and I like to dye my hair different colors sometimes. It's been a long time, but I just like to be kind of quirky and I cuss like a sailor if anybody gets to know me.
Noises.
I do. And I make burp noises and I enjoy a good glass of scotch.
That is something that you and I very much have in common, is that we both enjoy a good glass of scotch.
Right? Like there's a certain expectation in certain communities that we can't be expected to be that all the time. And just because we don't meet that particular expectation of the time or of the year doesn't make us a failure and it doesn't make us less than. And it's taken me years to come to grips with the fact that I am not stupid, that I am not a waste of life, that my quirkiness and funness and kind of inappropriateness is like totally okay. And through the ADHD community and finding a partner who is absolutely supportive of the person that I am, we don't have to be alone and we can choose to not be alone. It takes a lot of work and it's still taking a lot of work. But when we finally choose to put that work in, as tough as it is, it's only until we find the community that allows us to put in that work, that gives us permission to do that work, and in turn gives us permission for ourselves to do that work, that we can say, hey, this is 100% okay.
MJ Siemens podcast coming out, ADHD Diversified. Go subscribe. It might be out when this podcast comes out. And if it's not, it's going to be super, super soon. MJ, I am so looking forward to what you're going to create. I have a strong suspicion that what you are going to create is going to be something that is beyond what you even initially imagined. Because I know you have big thoughts and big ideas, and I'm excited to see what you create. So thank you so much for sharing a drink with me, sharing a conversation with me, and for all the stuff that you've been doing with ADHD reWired. And welcome to the family.
Thanks for having me. This is great. Thanks, everybody.
This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening, and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD reWired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find summaries and additional resources for each episode. You can apply to our free and secret Facebook community. You can learn more about ADHD reWired's intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups, and sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content you won't get anywhere else. It's all at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click the Patreon button. If you're a regular listener and you're still listening to my voice, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron through our Patreon page. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to listeners, but it is not free to produce. And patrons get really cool perks. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. You can also subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube. And you can subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube and see select interviews and some other videos I've posted. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends and your family and your clients, as well as your coaches, therapists, and doctors. And if you're a coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader, and you would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at my website, ADHDrewired.com. And if you're a member of CHAD or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this podcast. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. You know, you might be the person that turns somebody on to a podcast for the very first time. And if you really love this episode, please consider hitting share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I count on you to help me spread the message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and to help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or any other podcast app that accepts ratings and reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe on this podcast on your podcast app so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ADHD rewired. Not sure where to start? In no particular order. Check out Atomic Habits by James Clear, The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk, 10% Happier, and Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. These are both by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions and Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Vaden. The Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. Do you have trouble asking for help? Listen to The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. It's one of the best produced audiobooks I've ever heard. If you're looking for something a little bit more, say, magical, I unexpectedly fell in love with the Harry Potter series. And I don't usually listen to those kinds of books, and I loved it. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus yet, check out Brene Brown's books, starting with The Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader in any capacity, check out her 2018 book, Dare to Lead. And Brene still is my most wanted guest, so if you know Brene, and you would be so kind to make that connection for me, I would be really, really grateful. You know who else I would like to have on the show? You. Click the podcast tab at ADHDrewired.com and then click the Be a Guest button at the top of that page and schedule a 15-minute pre-interview. This is Eric Tivers, reminding you to keep learning, keep growing, and keep connecting. Self-care is not selfish, and no matter what gets done or doesn't get done, at the end of the day, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.